All right, welcome back. We're here for episode 26 of Two Plane Sports. We're coming back after a weekend recruiting that we are going to cover tomorrow on Friday's episode, and be sure to check that out. We'll have everything that was related with the all the Oklahoma kids on campus, a Texas commit coming on campus, and all the updates regarding that and any other recruiting news. Be sure to check that out tomorrow. But on this one, we've got a great show for you. We're going to be talking, I assume a lot of people have been hearing it. Obviously, the Big 12, Pac 12, and some schools maybe going to the Big 10. Obviously, Kansas is exploring, and just a lot of up in the air right now. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the Big 12, losing, potentially dissolving, what a potential pod format and how that would work. And then ESPN came out with their top 25 rankings. We're going to kind of hash out what we think about the top 10 and even, go all the way down to top 25 and any teams that we see on that list that shouldn't be there and any teams that are left off that list that maybe should be on there. But make sure before we get going into it, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. We really appreciate the support. And we're a month out from football kicking off for Oklahoma, which is hard to believe. But this is the hardest part whenever practice is going on and we're so close to a game. This is the dog days of summer. We're right there. So I think when I say we're all ready for it, I think we can all agree on that. So we'll get going into it. Obviously, there was a tweet and a couple of reporters were citing each other and, with their Kansas connections. It seems like Kansas might be over the next few weeks potentially heading to the Big Ten. Granted, they are an AAU school, accredited school. I know Iowa State is as well. That's a big deal for the Big Ten. I know Kansas football is horrendous, but the Big Ten, they're very top heavy. They have a handful of schools in there that aren't great football programs. When you think of Rutgers, at one point, Rutgers just a few years ago was pretty much equivalent to Kansas in football. And then you've got, Michigan State hasn't been great and a few other schools in there that it doesn't seem like their horrible football program would be a reason why they, not let them in. They're accredited and their basketball program, as much as we might not like them, they've got a huge following, a huge brand, and are elite. So what do you guys think about, Brandon, if you want to add some comments about Kansas, maybe one of the Big Ten, anything you have to say about that?
No, I think for sure it makes sense for them. I think it sucks for the Big 12. And like we've talked about a million times before, they took too much time complaining and crying about OU and Texas leaving. And now all these, their schools that were still intact, they're starting to find their way out. But for Kansas in general, I think it's good for them. Like you mentioned, just like some of those schools in football, you mentioned Rutgers. Illinois has not been all that good. Those are two winnable games for Kansas. Trying to think of Nebraska. I think Nebraska still beats them. Michigan State still beats them. But then basketball, there's no reason why it's going to be similar for them as far as getting walked all over on the football field and then competing, if not winning, the league in basketball. I think it'll be cool if Michigan State and Kansas play each other every year in basketball. Some of the two biggest powerhouses in the sport historically start meeting every year. That'll be fun. I think Michigan State and Kansas fans alike would like that. I think, Michigan State fans probably never had the chance to go to the Fog and vice versa for KU fans. So it could be fun.
Yeah. And one thing I will add, I knew that Kansas and Rutgers played recently. They played in 2018. Kansas beat them 55-14. So, Kansas is nothing in football, but Rutgers was that much worse. So Jose, what do you think about it?
No, I agree with you guys. It's definitely a good move for Kansas. I think the biggest thing that when talking about them moving there, like we've been mentioning, their football program is funds, but they won't be going after the perfect season regularly anymore. They'll probably get a couple guaranteed wins every year because of Rutgers and Illinois. But like Brandon said, their basketball team is going to get a completely new kind of revamped because they have been going through a little bit of a down last couple of years, and the Big 12 has honestly become probably the hardest conference to play in when it comes to basketball, and they need to keep competing. And for them to do that, the Big 10 is probably going to be their best bet. They'll get maybe a year or two to get back to the old Kansas. And obviously the Fog is going to stay hyped because those fans are basketball fans. We had a friend that went there, and like OU students go and get to the football games, to tailgate, and get to their seats 2 to 3 hours before. The students at Kansas go almost days before home games for basketball to line up, and they have a very strict system to get there. So obviously they're a big basketball school, and moving to the Big 12 is definitely, or Big 10 is going to help them hopefully get it just better over the next couple of years. I don't know if they were really going to have a chance to win the Big 12 as consistently as they were before. I mean, Oklahoma was really starting to compete with them a lot better. And I mean, Texas, Baylor are going to be really hard teams to beat for anyone, especially if you're going to be competing within the conference. So hopefully KU does get an opportunity to move it, and it does become official, because KU basketball is fun to watch as much as we may hate them because they're in the Big 12.
Yeah, and in another year or two, they'll be beating Ohio State in football.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Man, that would be something. But, I would think if Kansas is going to make this move, someone's going to go with them. And I think the most logical team to go with them is Iowa State. They're the other accredited AAU school. They would go with them. And, Iowa State's football program is on the, come up with Matt Campbell. And at one point, their basketball, their arena in, was it Hilton Head? Not Hilton Head. Coliseum. Yeah. That's a great basketball venue. And I feel like Iowa State brings a lot geographically. It makes a lot of sense. You have the Cyhawk. I mean, that would be great for them. But I really think if one more school, if this Kansas report is true, the Big 12 is going to dissolve. Like it's standing on, like, it's like a house of cards right now. One more goes, it's just going to topple on itself. I mean, because the Big 10's not going to just take one school, because they're not going to go from 14 to 15. They're going to go 14 to 16, and they're going to take two. They're not going to take West Virginia. There's no way. But, and the thing is that's looming with Kansas, and this is totally different and off topic. What is going on with these recruiting, the money, the whole deal with Bill Self and the FBI deal? That has been, I've never understood that. This is a whole different topic, but what is happening with all that? I feel like we had the report that came out for Oklahoma State for $1,000 or something like that. Then they get punished, but then they don't get punished, which I think for $1,000 it's a little ridiculous. Then you had the LSU deal with, what was it, $100,000? I can't remember what it was, with their coach paying a player. He got canned, I believe, or maybe he didn't get canned. But then I know Sean Miller at Arizona, he had his whole deal with DeAndre Ayton, a bunch of stuff, and they got in some hot water. But how long does it take, or what is going on with that? I've never understood why Kansas has been so immune. Their name has been in this report, and people know something happened. But everything else, or not everything, but other schools have already gotten, stuff's came out. Why hasn't Kansas's stuff come out? I don't know.
All I know is if Bill Self was cheating with Kansas in football, he wasn't doing a very good job.
In football?
On basketball.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Bill Self, yeah. I'm thinking of the
other guy.
Yeah, well,
what's his name?
The big guy
from LSU.
Les Miles.
Les Miles.
Yeah,
that guy.
Confused. Yeah, but for basketball, at least it makes sense. Yeah, if he's speeding because they're good. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they're not getting in trouble because they're one of the blue bloods for basketball.
It has to be. I mean, they.
Well, wasn't Louisville basketball too? And Patino got.
Yeah,
he got his program screwed.
Yeah, that one was quite the report, and he had escorts and everything else for.
They were having a good time there. Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, but
Very.
that is one thing I've never understood. There's been little deals that come up here and there with Kansas, like, oh, they were part of this report, but you never hear anything about it. It seems like someone might be protecting them. And I don't know, maybe does that weigh in the Big Ten's decision? Probably not, because they're probably going to get
Probably
protected and
not.
it's a
Yeah.
big brand.
Yeah. And yeah, like you want Kansas basketball.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting that you punish a school like Oklahoma State, you punish a school like Arizona, because I think Arizona, they self-inflict like a postseason ban for a year. So I don't know. There's a few things that they did. But I just think that's interesting that I don't think anything's going to come of it. No one's talked about it, at least from what I've seen it. And they're just going to try to sweep this under the doormat and move on. So I don't know. But
Why not?
anyway, why not, right?
Back to what you were saying with the Big Ten taking another school, I think ISU would be perfect, not just because of the environment with basketball, but Ohio State might finally have some competition in the Big Ten for football. I mean, really, with them probably being in the other division, they'll meet in the Big Ten championship, and Ohio State probably will win it more often than not, but it won't just be a formality anymore. It might actually be a game every once in a while to see who's the Big Ten champion.
Yeah, no, that is true. That is true. And having Iowa and Iowa State in the same conference would be pretty cool as well. That's a good rivalry to watch.
And for Iowa State, like for them specifically, like they have to try and make that happen too, especially if they want to keep this momentum that they have in football. Because obviously right now they're building something there. Matt Campbell's, I think he's a hell of a coach and he's putting together a real solid program there. The problem is if they go down with the Big 12 sinking ship, all of that progress, all that momentum that they're building is, it's going to be gone for them. I mean, I don't think staying in the Big 12 or wherever the hell the Big 12 is trying to go or figure out what they're doing. If I'm Iowa State, I want no part of that.
Yeah, that's another thing to bring up with the Big 12. If these schools sit back and don't do anything, these recruits are gonna be like, so what are you doing in 2 years when I'm there and we're in this contract or this TV deal's up? What are we doing? That's why I have a hard time believing that, OU's not going to leave. OU and Texas are not leaving until 2025. What are you meaning? There's no way that I just have a hard time believing that they're going to have something in place and these schools are going to take care of themselves, look out for themselves, and rightfully so, because that's what OU and Texas have done. Because if you don't protect yourself, no one's going to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Honestly, the Pac-12 might just hold out. I know we kind of touched on it, and if not, we're going to touch on it. They met the commissioners for the Pac-12 and the Big 12 met recently about a scheduling merger or something like that. The Pac-12 should just sit on it, wait a couple years, because the Big 12 might not exist by the time that TV contract is up. Because I saw a report that once Oklahoma and Texas leave, the Big 12 is going to lose at least 50% of the revenue from TV deals because we're the only attraction. So what's the point in signing a conference that really doesn't bring anything for you? Might as well just wait, let it dissolve, bring in any teams that you want from that conference, and just grow your own. Make it a Power Four or Big Four kind of situation, and then that way it makes it easier for the playoffs, like we've mentioned before. What the conference champion for each power conference gets the bye, and then everyone else just fills in the rest of the 12 spots.
Yeah, and you bring up, I did see that. It was like 50-60% of their revenue share is going to go down for these schools. And, it seems like there's going to be a casualty as far as who's going to not be a part of the Power Five, or, well, it could be the Power Four conferences. And it very well, Baylor might be in that boat. It seems like the two schools that have the most likely chance of missing out would be TCU and Baylor. And I think in the state of Texas, they were having some Senate hearings or something like that. And the Texas president was there, Baylor, TCU, and Texas Tech, all the Texas Big 12 schools are there. And the Baylor president, I forget her name, but she brought up, if we're going to go to a group of 5 conference like the AAC, they're going to have a hard time. They just won the national championship in basketball. Yes. They're not going to be able to recruit kids like that. They're going to want to go play.
In this whole, just because of what you just said. Like, you just won a national title. There should be no better time for you as far as recruiting goes. But as you mentioned earlier, those kids are going to be like, well, what the heck's going to happen Like I'm not committing here. I'm not signing here to play in the AAC. You know, no disrespect to the AAC, but these kids, like I was mentioned earlier, the Big 12 is, it's if not the best, it's top two as far as basketball goes, college basketball. And these kids want to play in that. They want to be nationally televised in ESPN. They want to do this and that. They don't want to play AAC. It sucks for
Yeah, and Scott Drew is going to leave their basketball coach because any big school is going to open the checkbook for him, and he's good enough to go coach anywhere. I mean, he's proven that. He's taken Baylor from, a average team to now obviously elite and winning a national championship. He's going to be able to ride his own ticket. And if this ends up happening where they get sent down, I wouldn't think he's going to stay. I mean, I get loyalty, but at some point when you're as good as you are at your job, you want to go somewhere that you can compete at the highest level, in my opinion.
How good does Chris Beard look now? Making the Texas Tech to Texas flop.
That
smart.
Switch.
That is true.
I don't think we
wonder
knew it at the time, but he looks like a genius now, especially if he had like some inside knowledge. Like, I doubt there's any way he knew that, but.
Well, I mean, the reports are that Oklahoma and Texas have been looking at this move for a while now, so very possible. I mean, 6 months ago, right? Could be.
I don't know how long he's been the Texas coach. Like, when did he accept that position?
It was around where when Porter accepted the OU position, if I remember.
Yeah,
correctly.
it was right after March Madness. So March is in that's what 5 months ago, 4.5, 5 months ago. So
maybe he did get wind of it.
Maybe the president and the AD were like, listen, SEC potential, come play or come coach. We'll pay you whatever you want. It's Texas Tech is going to be going down either way if you're there.
True too, because Chris Beard did a heck of a job at Texas Tech.
Yeah,
I know we had them in the title game. I can't remember if they won or lost, but they were there.
They lost.
Yeah, they lost. Yeah, but he was terrific, but then Texas Tech will probably get shipped off to the Pac-12, which Pac-12 for basketball is not bad. It's just the SEC. But then again, I look at the SEC basketball, it's definitely not as elite as the Big 12.
Oh, not even close. They've got Kentucky as like their blue blood. Then
you got Florida. Florida's not a bad team. They won a few national championships in the mid 2000s.
Alabama's on and off. They have like a couple down years, and they'll have a one decent.
Arkansas might be building something there.
Yeah. They just don't have like a lot of elite teams like the Big 12 had been for the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and this might be another deal, talking about basketball, but Porter Moser, he might be able to start capitalizing on, hey, we're going to be in the SEC, come play SEC basketball. We're going to make this conference elite in the basketball. That could be a big selling point, more revenue. I just feel like these two sports, football and basketball, are only going to get better for the Sooners. So
that's another matter.
Honestly, like, it's crazy how much has happened in 3 weeks, all because not to be like just rude and speculating, but a lazy commissioner that didn't want to fight for better TV times for his premier schools in the highest revenue sport. Like, get Oklahoma and Texas some night games, and we'd probably be content at least through the end of this TV deal, where we would have just stayed put and none of this would have came out.
And I think I was reading something. The commissioner position at any conference outside of Greg Sankey in the SEC, it's a made up position. I mean, Sankey's position is made up. It's just a handful of guys that are raking in piles of cash. And as a business, running a business, if you've got your 2 biggest contributors to your revenue, you're going to take care of them or cater to them. Bowlesby, or however you say his name is, has been acting like he's been shocked that that OU and Texas would ever think to leave. The guy's an idiot. I mean,
it was weird. And Hose mentioned how it happened so fast, like in the last 3 weeks and stuff. Like at the Big 12 Media Day, which they have every year outside of last year with all the pandemic stuff. But like at the Big 12 Media Day, which at this point feels like forever ago, it was like a month ago. At that point in time, there was nothing. Like nobody had any idea, or I'm sure OU and Texas knew, but they really kept it quiet. They were hush about it. I mean, the whole day going through it, they seemed like they were going to be part of the Big 12 for the foreseeable future.
Do you guys? Do you guys remember when the schedule came out for football, or at least like when the first few times started to be released? Because I wonder like how much faster, like, because obviously Castiglione was not happy that the Nebraska game wasn't at least an afternoon game. Like if we would have gotten a 3 p.m. kickoff, I bet probably not super happy, but that helps a lot with recruiting, getting TV time. I'm sure that as soon as he saw 11 a.m., he just called up the Texas AD and said, "Hey, let's get this moving. We're not going anywhere with this."
Yeah, and I remember that statement was very adamant about we're deeply disappointed and angered. Yeah, so I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff. I'm really pulling for Kansas to pull the trigger and go to the Big Ten because it's just going to create an avalanche. Either way, OU and Texas are going to be in the SEC next year. They're going to be in the SEC next year. SEC has too much money on the line.
Brums should tweet something like we've seen Hose on Twitter. You know, like the people are saying like ridiculous things like, "I'm going to cut my sack off if Iowa State doesn't." Yourself, that's got to be Brums' tweet.
Yeah, I'm telling you, they will be.
How about we do a chug? We can do a chug bet for you, since you're so adamant about the 2022 move. What?
5 beers.
More than 5 beers. This is 10 beer.
10 beers in one episode, Brum.
You can split them into 2, but
I was going to say in 30 minutes, that's a lot. I mean, that's fine, but what happens if I'm right?
Get after it.
If you're right, I got to drink 10 beers in 2 episodes.
Both of you?
No, not me. I'm not a part of this.
Wait, what do you think? You think they're going to move next year?
Yeah, I'm with Brum.
All right, 10 beers it is. We'll come back to this in however many months. Figure out what it is.
I'm willing to bet when the news will come out, it will come out. I bet it'll come out right after the football season.
Yeah, I was going to guess like bowl season. Just as football's wrapping up to try to keep headlines.
Yeah, I would imagine it'll be announced early spring, late winter.
Well, don't they have to give 18-month notice?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
So they have to give that notice like soon if they want to be part of the league.
They already gave the notice.
The notice was for leaving. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, I do think Kansas or some other school is going to be like, I'm out or we're out. And then it's just going to fall apart, or somehow magically money's going to pop up for a buyout. They're going to negotiate.
Did you see what Eddie Radosevich tweeted today?
Yeah.
That we got texted. That's
Photoshop.
With the big check coming in.
$80 million check cruising on I-35.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I think unless you guys have anything to add, I mean, this is going to be a recurring topic that we're going to obviously continue to discuss. But really the last thing I have to say is if the Big 12 wants to survive, they have to do that cross conference scheduling alliance, whatever, with the Pac-12. Because if you had brands like USC, Oregon, and Washington playing Oklahoma State and a few other schools, it will help. Those brands will help significantly with revenue. Because, I mean, USC, that's one of the biggest brands in college football, not the greatest football team, but they're one of the biggest brands, obviously Southern Cal. And that would be literally probably the only way for the Big 12 to survive, is to have four games a year-ish, somewhere around there, playing Pac-12 schools, various big 8 or little 8 schools playing Pac-12 schools and doing that whole that whole ordeal. So I think that's the only way they survive. If it happens, I feel like Kansas is going to be the one that makes it all collapse. Obviously. I wonder
if they're having a secret collaboration with Iowa State, just like we did. It's going on right now. We don't know anything about it.
Very possible. I just don't think that it'll happen next year. Probably I think 2023 is the best bet, just because that's also when ESPN gets the full rights to the SEC. So, but we'll see. I mean, yeah, the Big 12, just if they can manage a way to survive through this, they also better find a way to get Fox to actually work with them in the Pac-12, because they're not going to survive. If they're going to be playing the Pac-12, they're going to be a Pac-12 at midnight for the East Coast. No one fucking watches those games.
The only thing that sucks about the move to the SEC is we're gonna lose our boys Gus and Joel on the call every Saturday.
Maybe ESPN can poach those guys too.
They need to, because they're better than whoever the heck's doing it now. Was it Greg Gumbel on the SEC call or something?
I don't know. I forget their names, but CBS has the greatest intro. The music leading into the 2:30 game.
Need is Gus Johnson.
I know.
I love that guy.
Yeah. So, all right, we'll move on. Obviously, we've talked about the pod format for the SEC. 4 pods, 4 teams. It seems like that is probably the way that they're going to move forward with it. This is a hypothetical one that has been floating around. Pod A, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, South Carolina. Pod B, Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. Pod C, LSU, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Texas A&M. Pod D, OU, Texas, Missouri, and Arkansas. And that seems to be a good regional mix, not too heavy in one pod or another.
That's a great pod for Oklahoma.
Yeah. I mean, you play Missouri and Arkansas, two cream puff schools that you're just going to destroy every year for the most part. And then you've got Texas that you beat more times than not as well. And, obviously Texas will have their probably permanent game or whatever with Texas A&M. I bet OU, they're going to assign each school probably at least 1 permanent game or 2 permanent games every single year. I bet OU is going to get assigned to Alabama. I have that weird feeling that they're going to put the Sooners to play every year against Alabama.
If you're the SEC or if you're ESPN revenue-wise, why wouldn't you want that to be
Alabama's going to say no, thank you.
I think Oklahoma's going to say no, thank you too.
Yeah, I think we'll get maybe like a
screw you guys. We'll play every year in the SEC title game when we have to play each other.
Yeah. And they have because the SEC has like their rivalry week, and that is kind of nationwide. So they already have Auburn on their rivalry week, Texas A&M and Texas. We might get. I feel like our rivalry week might be Missouri. I know it's not that big of a rivalry, but that's the only one that's like somewhat existent at this point.
Is the Oklahoma-Texas Red River game, is that going to be played Red River style, or are we going to get to have it to where we host each other now?
I think it's going to, because I think the contract with the Cotton Bowl is with the schools. I think that continues. I don't think that's like a Big 12 negotiated deal. I think that's literally with the schools. So I think it's going to continue to be the same traditional. I know people have talked about moving it to Jerry's World, but I like the tradition. I know the Cotton Bowl isn't the fanciest thing in the world, but it's just got a lot of history.
And if you're going to move it, the only thing that would make sense is if we were to host each other. But yeah, if it's going to stay in Dallas, it has to play the Cotton Bowl.
And the state probably wouldn't allow it to move. And the Cotton Bowl, I don't know if it's a committee like board of directors or whoever's in charge probably will make sure they pay whatever is needed to keep that game there, because they have the state fair in the game. Like that's probably the best weekend revenue wise for them.
Yeah. And maybe OU's permanent game, if it is in Alabama, it might be Georgia. It's going to be one of those schools, those big, Alabama, LSU, or Georgia. The biggest brands against the biggest brands. That's what's going to happen. I think the pod will work out. It's a great pod if that's what it ends up being. Missouri and Arkansas and Texas. That's a dream for OU. And, then you talk about the SEC gauntlet. You get those 3 schools every year. You get 3 out of conference. So there's 6-year games. You might have mix in an Ole Miss, mix in a Tennessee or Vanderbilt, a couple schools there. You only have three or 4 really big, tough games. Not saying that's a cakewalk, but it's not going to be the end of the world. Some people, that hate OU are like, oh, they're going to come in and be 7-5. Oh, come on. Seriously.
Yeah, that's the most
think about that. It's a very top heavy conference. Granted, you're adding another brand in Oklahoma that's going to add to the top heaviness, but there's still a lot of schools that are okay, but not great.
Vanderbilt still exists.
South Carolina still exists, even though Shane Beamer's there. We're
Missouri,
big Beamer guys.
Arkansas still exists.
Tennessee.
Yeah. Vanderbilt. Tennessee.
Vanderbilt's
Arkansas.
a tremendous baseball school.
We got half of Tennessee's roster this last offseason.
Yeah.
They're like, screw this place.
Oklahoma
Got the
Volunteers.
McDonald's bags, and they're out of there.
Yeah. So we'll move on real quick. It'll be interesting to see, but there's definitely going to be. I don't think it's going to be in the world. The pod situation, if that works out, that'll be great. So moving on to the ESPN power rankings. You got one in Alabama, which I have a hard time. I don't know with all them losing everything, but then again, you have Nick Saban, Sooners at 2, Clemson at 3, Georgia at 4, Ohio State at 5, Texas A&M at 6. So 4 of the 6 schools, SEC schools, right? Are we going to start calling ourselves part of the SEC?
SEC.
No, I will never chant that. But 4 out of 6, I think that's going to be something we're going to be seeing pretty usual. 4 out of 6. Yeah, at least half the top 10 is going to be SEC schools, especially adding Oklahoma and Texas, and if Texas can ever get it together. But North Carolina at 10, which I find that to be pretty interesting. I know Sam Howell's got a lot of hype coming into this season. I don't know.
That's got to be why. Like, that has to be the reason that they have North Carolina at 10. I mean, granted, I don't know much about North Carolina's roster, but I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons why we're so confident about this season going in, is because we've got an experienced, really good quarterback at the helm. Whereas your other top dogs, your Alabamas, your Clemson, your Ohio States, even A&M lost Kellen Mond. Like, they're rolling with freshmen, which I'm sure they're going to be really, really good, but they are freshmen and they're going to make freshman screw ups.
Oh yeah, I mean, just like Spencer Rattler did, and you got Oregon at 8, which Oregon's rolling with. I forget who they're rolling with as far as quarterback goes, but and then you've got Notre Dame at 9. I can't stand Notre Dame, and you guys know I don't like Notre Dame. Jose loves Notre Dame for some weird reason.
Irish guy on the side.
I can't stand them. They're one of the schools they're one of the big 4 I can't stand. Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Oklahoma State, Texas. and Texas. I mean, those are the big 4, and it's just I can't stand them, and I think it's just ridiculous that they're independent. I get why they are. They get their own network money from NBC, but they're the biggest.
They suck.
I hope they go 0-12, and they need to join a conference.
What do you guys
join the
Texas
ACC?
Being at 21.
I think it's fair. Honestly, I think this entire list is pretty good. Like, the only thing I disagree with is the fact that Oklahoma isn't number 1. Probably 1, because I'm being a homer, and 2, like we've been saying, we have the most returning starters. I'm pretty sure talented returning starters, and our quarterback. We know what our quarterback can do. We don't know Alabama's quarterback, what he's going to do. He hasn't ever taken a snap in college.
He's already Clemson, 6 figures rich, though.
Right, but we know Clemson's quarterback. He got to play 2 or 3 games when Trevor was hurt. Georgia's quarterback, not a returning starter for them, but he has played in college. Like, Alabama is just hyped because they're Alabama right now. I honestly think they might drop a game or 2, but they're still going to be very good.
In ESPN's defense of Alabama, I kind of say it a lot of times too with power rankings before season starts. You kind of have to start the defending champions at the top spot. Maybe that's the only thing they're thinking. That's their thought process. Yeah. With Clemson, you mentioned we did get to see DJ Uiagalelei, whatever his name is, play, but there's a huge drop off in that play. They lost to Notre Dame with DJ at the helm, and then
but it wasn't. They didn't get their asses kicked. It was so close. They just lost.
Granted, it was close, but they lost. But when Trevor played, they beat them by 1,000.
Yeah, I mean,
in the playoff,
DJ's stat line that game was very good, though. It was Trevor. I think that was just a good game for Notre Dame.
DJ did throw for 439 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Did he have any turnovers?
No.
Oh, then
Notre Dame just had a very good game that day.
Yeah, it was weird, but I know we don't really care for them, but I actually think Oklahoma State will end up in the top 25. I think they actually deserve to be in the top 25.
Yeah, they always do. They'll crack their way in there.
But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But I think that's about all I've got. You guys have anything final thoughts wise or leading up to this other than football's right around the corner?
That'll do it.
No. Okay. All right. Well, we really appreciate it. hope you guys have enjoyed it. And if you made it this far, and if you hadn't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button, notifications, and definitely like and comment and let us know what you think about Kansas and maybe Iowa State going to the Big Ten. Kansas's, recruiting allegations.
About the Big 12 buffoonery.
Yeah, Big 12, Bowlesby crying all the time, not knowing, just the blind leading the blind basically as the commissioner, the SEC pod format, and ESPN's top 25. Let us know what you think. If you have any other suggestions, anything you'd like us to talk about, make sure to let us know. Like I said in the beginning, tomorrow we're going to be releasing more of a recruiting related video. Make sure to check that out with, Makai Lemon, DeAndre Moore, Gentry Williams, Chris McClellan, and those types of guys and what they did this weekend, possibly, and Makai Lemon committing this weekend, and what we think about him. Make sure to check that out tomorrow. But we really appreciate it, and we're growing. We're almost to the football season. We're in the dog days of summer, and we'll keep the content coming your way. Appreciate it.